I'm trying to get more serious acting parts.
Okay.
Because some people think I take life too flippantly.
Is this your husband again?
You know him. Very angry man. Andrew Pugsley.
Pippa Evans.
Are you excited about today's podcast episode?
Yes, I am. Are you?
I'm very excited.
You were very serious.
Well, so I try to be serious. Life's getting real, Andrew.
Yeah.
There's a human growing inside of me.
Yeah.
Our listeners know.
By the time this airs...
Human might be outside.
Human might be... In fact, if the human is not outside, then you might be being induced.
Oh, wow. Induced. I always think that word sounds much nicer than the process.
Oh, dear.
Isn't it? Induced. Sounds like a quite nice word.
Like sort of invited.
Hey, I'm going to induce the baby. Maybe the problem with induction, because people get scared of it. This has turned into a pregnancy podcast.
That's fine. We'll cover whatever our listeners need.
But I feel like you're going to have to be induced, is how it's said. When maybe it needs to have some chords under it, and it's just, hey, you're going to have to... How about we induce you? And be like, oh, okay, that sounds kind of fun.
Sounds slightly disturbingly sexy.
So bit of nervous laughter there. But I tell you what I do know.
What do you know?
Is this is our first repeat guest.
Such an amazing guest. We just needed to get them back for more because sort of half an hour podcast can only contain 0.001 of their amazing anecdotes.
Yeah. We are talking about, of course, Mr. Mike McShane, the legend of Whose Line Is It Anyway, Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves film, other things.
All the stuff.
Do you know what I really remember him from?
Yeah.
Is the adverts for Canada Air.
I'm not sure I know those.
It was about how they had these lovely new chairs.
Right.
And they were very comfortable to sit in. Does Canada Air even exist anymore?
I'm not up on my international travel at the moment. I don't know why.
Sad that we didn't bring that up.
That's for next time he's on.
That's right. That'll be the third time lucky.
Yeah.
Also joining us was the wonderful Ruth Bratt.
The wonderful Ruth Bratt, absolutely.
Who was, of course, on tour with Mike at the time in the Paul Merton's Impro Chums.
Absolutely. And we had Duncan Walsh Atkins on keys, and we recorded this at Tall Story Studio in North London.
We should take a listen.
Hello, Mike McShane.
Hello, Andrew. How are you? Hi, it's Bob, the talking spoon.
You are our first repeat guest ever on the Showstopper podcast.
I hope to work off these parking tickets, at least with this final one, and free myself from the bondage of your prison system and being at Her Majesty's pleasure.
Quite right, too. What crimes did you commit to be sentenced to another podcast?
I crossed a bleacher beacon against the bleacher. I slept on a sleeping policeman. He was quite comfortable.
Nice.
And I was doing a little fly tipping at midnight. I'm crazy that way.
There we go. That's all we got time for.
Now we have with us also Ruth Bratt.
Yeah.
Hi.
There she is. Sometimes Ruth and I sound like we have the same voice when recorded. So maybe before each time we speak, we'll go, Pippa Evans. But you two are currently on tour with the Impro Chums.
Yeah.
Why don't you tell us about that?
We've been doing a lot of shifting. The old COVIDo has required us to change. Well, actually, it's required our tour manager, Paul E., Lord Pinkmore, as we call him, to hustle like he's amazing.
Yeah, I would like him to be just my life manager, because literally you don't think. It's amazing. Like he tells you when breakfast is. He tells you when you have to be on the bus. You just get taken to a hotel. He gives you your room key, and then you go, oh, great. And he goes, in tomorrow, breakfast is this time. Thank you very much. That's it. It's great. That's basically what our touring experience is.
And we get up in the morning and go, oh, we're not taking the bus anymore. It's full of COVID. We're taking a train. Wait, the train's full of COVID too. We have a horse trap full of corn cobs. Hop on in. And he's just like, he just moves and switches. You never see him get flustered.
He doesn't get flustered. In fact, I asked him about it because we went to the Isle of Man. We couldn't get a flight over. We were supposed to be on EasyJet. And of course, that was when they were cancelling everything. And so he managed to get us on a ferry just immediately. So we all went to the ferry, and then on the way back we were on a different airline, and they had like a weight limit of baggage.
Yeah.
And our keyboard was obviously heavier than 32 kilograms or whatever. And honestly, if that had been me on my own, by that point I'd have been in like cold sweat, bright red in the face, panicking, just taking off all my coat and you know. And he just looked at these women who were pretty unpleasant, and he just went, well, we have a problem, don't we? And then just sorted it out without, and I said to him afterwards, I was like, how do you do it? And he went, I just don't care. So that's, yeah.
Yeah,
touring.
he's like Obi-Wan Kenobi.
Yes.
These are not the cases that you'll put on the plane.
Yeah.
These aren't the cases you'll put on the plane. Thank you.
Yeah,
That's
and they all
amazing.
got on. Like everything got on, and we all got back. So
Wow.
We don't really hear about tour managers much, do we? We always talk about the singers, the performers,
Yeah.
we talk about the lighting designers, we talk about the tour. Who becomes a tour manager?
well, he's got like he doesn't need to do it.
Yeah.
That's
Oh,
what's
right.
really amazing.
This
Like,
is-
he has a really
is it his hobby?
successful business. Yeah, he's like it's a lighting business. So they
So he's a production person. He has storage production. He has staging. He has lighting. He has sound. He's all. So he's got his own equipment. So he's turning into orbital sound basically.
yeah,
And
and they
he's-
do like they did Saturday Night Takeaway, and they do these massive
Like big
things.
shows, big proper shows.
And then he just comes and does the tour for fun.
Wow.
We're kind of like the repair shop show. It's kind of like, at least I am. It's like, well, what are you fixing there? Well, it's a piece of improvisation from Ken Campbell in 1979. We cleaned out the cannabis and the anger, and now we're setting it up again. And listen, we'll bring an old improviser in. He'll cry when it works, and he just gets us through stuff.
Yeah,
and
it's amazing.
Yeah, it's great to have him.
I did say to him, could you just continue doing it when the tour's over?
For your life, generally.
For my life generally. Well, because we know what my life
Yeah.
is.
Chaos.
It's chaos.
Listeners,
It is.
chaos.
Pretty chaotic. But he is going to take me. Did you know this? He's going to take me to a petting zoo.
This is great.
in Soho.
We need more information. yeah, he's in the basement.
He just sent me, like, we've been chatting about,
Petting things.
petting things, and that I want an island with an animal sanctuary on it, and all that stuff.
Classic chat.
Classic chat. And then he just went, he sent me loads of pictures the other day and was like, this is where we need to go when the tour's over. And there's loads of pictures of him and his kids hugging goats. And it's literally like my dream. And so, yeah.
Can I come?
Yeah, you can come too.
I'm up
Yeah.
for some goat hugging.
And then he's also going to teach me how to build a bin store.
These are not immediately related items.
No, I know. But he's like, you can do it. I'm like, but I don't know how to. He's like, no, you can do it.
He's the incredibly empowering production
Yeah.
manager.
Yeah.
Wow.
He's like got a secret weapon going. It's fantastic.
It's brilliant.
You do rely on people, and we all rely on each other when we do shows and stuff. That, like you say, from the improvisers who are running lights and improvisers are creating the sound and dropping the scenes, and when you got somebody who works so seamlessly with you, he is an improviser. With the way he works production, if this doesn't work, he'll try this. But yeah, he doesn't get flustered, and he just kind of guides himself through the next thing. Now, he may have a goiter the size of a lunch bag somewhere that we're not going to find out later. It's like full of stress liquid. But as of yet, he hasn't blown up.
So, listeners, this is probably the most far away from an improvised musical we've got in terms of our opening chat. For people who are listening who don't know, Paul Merton's Impro Chums would we describe it as mostly short-form games?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what is a short-form game?
Here's my theory on short form.
Here it
and
comes.
long form.
This is why we've got
Here
her
we go.
on.
Short form is A to B, so like it's got a narrative arc, but it just happens in 30 seconds. Long form is a narrative arc, and it just happens over 30 minutes, an hour. So there's not really, for me, any massive difference. The difference with the short form games is that there's like a constriction. So
Foreign lecturer.
Yeah, so foreign lecturers, someone is a foreign lecturer who doesn't speak English, does gibberish, and then someone else translates it. So it's there's a conceit around which you're working, or like three-headed. I think that's the perfect improv game. You can't plan it because you're doing one word at a time.
Yes.
And you can't control it because you can't control a thing in one word. And for me, that's like the perfect game.
Could you describe what happens in a game of three-headed expert?
Oh, well, in a game of three-headed expert, there's an interviewer, and then there's three people sitting next to each other on chairs slightly distanced because of COVID restrictions. And they are basically one person. And so the interviewer will ask them a question and they reply one word at a time.
I mean, we've got an interviewer here and 3 people, so we could just quickly do one so people can hear it.
This is a rich loam.
Hi, what's your name?
My
Name
Is
Alan.
Parker. Hi, Alan. It's so great to have you here. Now, you've got your new book out. What's it called?
2
people
in
trouble.
In trouble. I mean, I've read it, obviously. It's amazing. Would you mind just reading out a couple of lines from the back of the book?
Would
you
like
the
long
choice
or
the
short
snappy
one?
Oh, I'd like the long, snappy one, please.
Tuesday.
I
took
myself
to
the
town
where
I
grew
up.
I
found
There
a
pal
she
took
me
further
into
trouble
and
then
it
all
got
interesting.
Well, that really does sound like 2 people in trouble. Thank you so much, Alan, for being here.
you
very
welcome.
Thank you.
Oh, they should all end with a kiss.
It
That would be
should.
nice.
It's like the dating game. We should all go like. You guys aren't old enough for that. In America, this is called the dating game, which actually had Ted Bundy on.
Oh, wow.
Serial killer.
yes,
He got
yes.
on it. Yeah. And
And
Steve Martin.
Was this
Yeah.
like blind date or kind
Yeah,
of thing?
so you have this it turns and there's 3 chairs
That's right, yeah.
away from the
Okay.
person asking the questions. And
Right.
At the end, they go, and everybody, and they go, mwah, to the camera, and even Ted Bundy.
And for listeners,
For a
that
kiss
was
to
a
America.
kiss into the hand directed at the, how do we describe that?
It's sort of like when you throw a kiss towards the camera.
in a sort of rainbow art.
Yeah, sort of an art. Very theatrical. It's like love. It's like a lovey launch. Darling.
Could we say that long form is just lots of short form games where we just don't know what the games are
Yeah.
tagged together?
I reckon so.
And you feel obliged to measure it out a little more, not to. I think with the short forms, because they're like sketches, there's reveals that you react highly to, or you become more ridiculous faster, but try to keep a hold of the scene a little. But it's sort of like running faster and like it becomes like a sketch. Sometimes I feel our group has a vibe. I've said to Ruth, we're like the Marx Brothers, and Paul is like Groucho. He's allowed to crash things more and be more anarchic, and we support the anarchy within that measure. Paul has an answer for everything. He's known as being very bright. He's known as being very smart. So we play Who Am I, where we do a deliberately oblique clues. Now, he probably gets them sooner than you think, and that way he's a good actor. I can't tell sometimes if he doesn't really know what's going on. But the audience enjoys watching him attempt and fail continually and then grab things at the last minute. So that part of improv is very real to them, is much more pungent when it comes upon him, the smart guy. Right.
Yeah.
You know.
Cleverness has quite an interesting relationship to improvisation, I think, because on one hand, it attracts kind of people who enjoy the kind of intellectual challenge of it and that side of things. And it can be like quite a sort of clever atmosphere, but also that can be massively blocking as well to someone who wants to be engaged and emotional and connected in the moment. And it's quite an interesting kind of tension between those things.
Well, it's often a thing people say to you, isn't it? They're like, "Oh, you're so clever, you're so quick."
Yeah.
And I'm always like, I don't feel like I'm very clever when I'm on stage, because if I'm honest, there's not a lot going on apart from just listening, you know. So I never feel like my responses are never me consciously being clever.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And so sometimes when people go, "You're really clever," I'm like, I don't think so. I think I was once.
But you are very clever, but the cleverness is in the back of your mind, isn't it?
Yes, I suppose.
You know,
yeah.
that you know story structure and you know this stuff inside out, and we all know you do. But it's when you're in the moment, you don't want to be thinking. And
No.
you definitely don't want to be trying to be clever.
And I wonder, just because around this table, everybody here trained in short form and in theatre.
Yes.
So there's something about being able to do both those things, which I find really fascinating. And I personally think is the best training for improvisation, is to do both, because short form is almost slightly more intellectual, because you take on the game, and you're maybe playing with words or playing with a premise. Whereas long form, perhaps there is more space for the emotional.
Yeah, and you're watching somebody lay something out at a pace that once the pace is sort of approved by the evening and the audience, like I did a thing with Sally and Marcus and me and Ruth and Marcus sat there for 2 minutes, 3 minutes, no words. They were at a breakfast table. And you could tell they were avoiding each other, and it was building slowly and nicely, and the audience was going, oh, that's the kind of improv we're getting tonight. And fortunately, it wasn't like, There was actually people who were there for that. And so that got permission. You felt the permission. You took your time, and me and Sally were watching it going, okay. No, we know who we are. Now we're the kids. We're the kids. So we're going to come in, and it was just nice. And so that's allowed you to take your time, listen to people, see what they really kind of want, even if they're handing you something. I've gotten really hooked on the silent physical offers. I work with a guy named Steve Kieran in LA, and Steve was a dancer, and he's a live, very Danny Kaye-like fellow. And he can hand you a cup of liquid 10 different ways, and you know exactly where you're at with them, from like a busy like here to like, obsequious and laying it out to, pushing it like a mother going, that, he's amazing. And so all the silent offers make long narrative, make the long ones, I think. Once the audience goes, oh, that's what they're doing. If you don't like it, you don't like it, but I think most people now like it. People have become so sophisticated because of you guys. Groups that have like raised the form up and made it sophisticated on the West End, where you pay an overpriced for a cup of custard, and you better mean something.
Hey, we give out free custard at our shows.
Oh my God! How do you guys stay afloat? I saw an image of Dylan like freezing custard in the back of a truck.
I think it's really sad though that people don't learn the short form games anymore. Because when we learned, there wasn't really anyone to teach us.
When she says we, she points to me.
I pointed to Pippa Evans. But we learned doing the games in front of people, and you learn so quickly to listen to what an audience wants through that, because the pressure's so high, because it is, and I think it's a shame that people don't have that option to fail so magnificently in front of other humans who are paying to see it.
Well, especially because when we started, we were doing like shows in the basement of the Polar Bear, which doesn't even exist anymore. It's now called Kubar, I think, on Lyle Street, and it was like in front of 5 people in a pub, and we felt like rock stars, but it didn't matter, didn't feel, and also because there wasn't any social media or anything like that, so I suppose you didn't feel exposed every time you did a show, maybe? I don't know.
Maybe.
It feels like now there's maybe pressure on new groups to immediately be brilliant rather than just be rubbish for as long as we were allowed to be.
I think there's guys, and literally, when I first came here, you go to Edinburgh, and it's 5 dudes from a university with a slightly oblique, witty name for their group, and that's good, but there's a lot of you. There are, and there's a lot of you, and some of them are really good, and some of them are a little poisonous, and that gets blown apart. And so now you have groups of different people, different socio-sexual, gender-based interests, or creating their own improv groups, and hopefully they're all happy and the big picnic, and everybody's sharing the cheese, and it isn't isolated pockets of people going, my cheese,
Yeah.
It gets like that in LA a little sometimes. But here it doesn't seem to, it never seems, I say this knock on wood, because I've known you guys since you were in improv diapers,
when Ruth and I
falling off of the stage. I remember Andrew suckling the teat of Dame Improv as a young boy. Oh God, it was beautiful. We used to do it by limelight.
I remember the day in my university improv group at the Edinburgh Fringe, the day when Mike McShane came to guest with us, and I remember how incredibly exciting that was.
Wow, I bet that was amazing.
Man, that has faded away so fast now.
Do you remember when Mike came to do Stopper?
Yes.
And we were all so nervous. was so excited.
Just
so
because you're
nervous.
Mike McShane.
Because you're Mike McShane.
Now you're Mike McShane.
Yeah, now you're
then you were Mike McShane.
But I remember, like, it was like one of the best lessons I've ever had, because we were all like, it's Mike McShane. And we were doing a warm-up, and we were playing, like, freeze tag or something. And Mike sort of froze it and got into this thing and then went, I got nothing. And we all went, ooh. And it was amazing. It was like such a, like, one, that you can have nothing and still go in. 2, that you can be that experienced and have nothing. 3, that it was all right to say, I got nothing. And it was such a joyful kind of ping, I think, for all of us. And then I think
I started crying.
You started crying. And then we had to really
Yes.
buoy you up. And then we made you the king of the dragons or something, I think.
Yeah, there's a big stat. I got a big status lift in that show. Remember? So I was like, I felt like I was like inside of a Candor and Ebb musical, fully on.
It was also a really good lesson for us in terms of being available to new performers, because you could have been like, I'm not going to come and play with you guys, you don't know what you're doing, whereas you were like, I'm so excited to see what you new guys are doing.
Yeah.
That was kind of like the San Francisco thing. That's what me and Proops, we're from the Bay Area originally, and that's where I learned improv. And it's kind of hippy dippy and freeform and stuff. There isn't a lot of big career moves. You go to LA for that, or New York. It's kind of like San Francisco. You do good, it's great. If you don't do good, it's great. I mean, Robin took up all the room as the big improv monster of San Francisco, and so you were never going to be him. And he would come and play with you. Greg and I, when we were young, he came. He's like, "Oh, hey, you guys want to do something?" We started first doing Whose Line, and we like, yeah, sure. He goes, "Oh, come in and let's do a Shakespeare." And I go, "Okay." So he left, and Greg's like, "He works for every laugh he gets, man." And I'm like, "What are you being like that for?" Because I'm John Hippie guy. Greg's a hard-bitten comedian. He goes, "He's Robin Williams, man. He's just going to show up and get applause." I go, "Well, yeah, of course." He goes, "Well, let's just so we get a Shakespeare, and we're like, we're on the stage doing, 'Lo, who doth come from the misty black sea?' Da, da, da. And Robin comes on with his shirt pulled over his head, and he's really hairy. He was really hairy. So everybody knew who it was, and they applauded his hairy back. And I looked over at Greg, and Greg has this bland look, like sort of like an anteater. He's just like, dude, am I right? And I'm like, yes, you're right. And we didn't give him a word. We were the worst improvisers. He got on stage. I grabbed him, bent him over. I was him and eating breakfast off his back and giving him an order of things to do in the kingdom. And then he went to talk to Greg, who was a seer, and Greg like covered his eyes with his hands. I was like, yeah, doing like this, and it was like we were out of control. At the end, like he bowed to us on stage, and we thought, get us! Look at what we have! It took 2 of us to hold him down. It took 2 of us. And years later, he was in London. He came and saw us. We're like, hi. And he goes, oh, it's the Rope 'em Up and Brandon boys. I'm like, sorry. He goes, oh, no, fair play. And I was like, he was really, because the most boring story in the world is what a nice guy he is. There's very few stories where he was ever anything other than a sweet man. And that thing of like, oh, you're new to the game. Oh, I hear you're good. Let's do that. Come on. Boom, boom. And that's part of that Bay Area thing. And in LA and New York, it's going to be there because it's LA and New York.
There's such a relationship in America between improv sketch and getting on telly.
Yeah.
Yep.
And so there's much more of a, if I join an improv group, then I will get to be on the telly.
Yeah.
Whereas here it's, if I join an improv group, I'll make some great friends for life.
That's exactly
I might get to teach improv one day.
It's funny when you go into that dynamic, not coming from that dynamic, that you have learned improv through play and fun, and then you go into, say, someone says, hey, come and guest with us, in LA or New York or something, and you're on the stage, you go, what the hell is this? Because I've never experienced that so clearly as with very competitive American comedian improvisers, where it was like, I don't have time for the emotion. Going back to the emotion stuff, I need a line from you that I can react to so that we can find the punchline. I need you to come in with the game in your head already. And I find that really, really difficult because it's just not the way I roll, baby.
No,
I
it's
also
not.
always do emotional stuff in short form. I can't help myself.
Yeah.
Constantly saying, how do you really feel?
Yeah.
Someone who's playing a game.
Yeah.
My wife and I have fallen in love with watching a very old American television series called Gunsmoke. It was the longest running, up until recently, the longest running series on television. And in the beginning, they're half-hour ones, and they came off of radio. And so what the point I'm making is the early ones, high emotions, the characters were cut really big, not cartoony, but the stakes got high right away. The confrontation was right there, so they wanted to keep the temperature up on it. And then they got the hour, and they became settled, and they became longer stories. They became more soap-like. But the first ones are like film noir. Even opens with him on the black and white on the plane where Dodge City is a place where people don't live too long, but when they do, I have to get between them. I'm Marshall Dillon. Sometimes my job isn't good, but I got to do it. And then it starts with but it's really like to the point because they got a half hour.
Yeah.
And when you got short form, that's what you got.
Improv chumps.
Yes.
Singing. I'm sort of segueing towards musicals.
Yes.
Do you guys do songs with improv chums?
Yeah.
We do. We have the beautiful Kirsty Newton on the pianos.
How many pianos has she got?
She's got a lot.
Yeah, she's got one, but it's so many different pianos. Like sometimes you look over at her and she's like pressing loads of buttons, and then it's like a trumpet or something. And you're like, oh.
She really knows that board really well.
Yeah, she does.
Great thing, it allows Richard just to be an improviser. When we were on Whose Line, he got stuck behind that keyboard for a long time, and now he's in his own rights. It's always been a lot of fun on stage just by himself.
How much do you love singing, though, Mike?
I love singing a lot.
How did you first ever know that you loved singing?
Because when I was I'm an only kid, I used to sit in my room and sing all the time. Just sing the things.
Nice.
Make up songs about things. I never sang them to people because I just was the way I looked. Let's see. Let's find a better recipe for getting kicked in the balls. Being a fat kid singing on a Catholic playground at 9 years old. This is one. Success! Ow!
Yeah.
So I used to like to make things up. I liked things that alliterated and rhymed. I had a nun who gave me Coleridge and Shakespeare when I was like 11 to look at. She was an Irish-American nun, Sister Rosemary. And she was one nun that wasn't scary. She was nice to me.
And when was the moment that you sort of allowed yourself to sing? Because I think there's a very different relationship for boys and girls with singing, because girls are encouraged to sing much more than boys. And then there's this shift. Like, I feel like when was the moment you were like, actually, I can sing loud?
I had a really I was in a band called Phantom. And the guy that was the lead guitarist was 3 years older than us and still stuck in the same grade as us. And he was a serial fantasist. He would tell us, I was at Woodstock. We're like, he actually could not have been at Woodstock. It's impossible. But he would do that. And he had this guitar you can get at Kmart called the Tiesco Del Rey. He would try to convince us it's worth a couple of $100. And it was like easy $40. And we were in this band, and I could sing really loud. The first song I learned was Good Times, Bad Times by Led Zeppelin. Good times, bad times. And I always had a high voice. I've always had a high register voice. And that didn't help because I was doughy and soft. And of course, guys were like, hey man, do you have any balls? Because you sing so high. Yes, thank you, soon to be president of whatever you're going to be president of. And so I was in the band, and I
went to school with those guys too.
And they waited. They morph. They kind of they're like insects. A frost comes upon them, and then they find another round, soft kid who has talent.
Yeah.
And goes, we ought to have him. I was put into a state mental hospital as a kid with a lot of really not great shit. And so when I got out, then the legend was he's the guy that was in the crazy house. And so I went to a public high school, a state high school, instead of going to the parochial one. And so this concert was at the parochial high school. And I got up on stage, and I started singing that song, and my voice broke slightly, and somebody yelled, McShane, you sound like a pig! And my voice went and locked. And I couldn't sing. I couldn't get the words out. And this guy, the guitarist, goes, and now we're going to sing a song called Silence. And I was like, oh, Jesus. And afterwards, I was in the car, and there's this tunnel that's a really tight tunnel. And I rolled the window down, and I started sticking my head out the window. Just I go, I just want to die. And the last one I went, I really wanted to. And I did not sing for years until 1980, I got a job singing. I got my first professional job doing Forum, playing Pseudolus. And the guy was a really good director, and I finally went, and I can sing better. My voice is freer now, I've realized, when I improvise. When I have to sing properly, like a proper musical, I go through the stage where I'm going, get the notes, and my voice goes really tight, and I have to steam in the morning and stuff, because I get so anxious about it. But when it's like just making up something, I'm thinking ahead and telling a story, and then my body's like not worried about it. That's why I like improvising, singing so much. I think maybe that's why I was noted to be good at it on the show, because I could sing and nobody was telling me I sounded like a pig. I was having a good time, you know?
It's amazing how many people have been traumatized through singing, you know. The fact that you still remember, you know, someone saying that to you, watching you tell that story, we can feel the pain of that moment.
All of us have. Everybody's performance had somebody who's come in from the side and said something so not useful to you.
Yeah.
Right when you're like cooling lava in a little jar, and you're there, almost there, and somebody comes and puts their thumb in your head. Yeah. And you walk around trying to rub that out for a while. I had a really good friend. We lived together for a while. She's got this brilliant laugh. Oh my God, so good. She's got beautiful big teeth. And she was doing a show once. She's laughing, and this other actress goes, nobody believes your laughter. It's all so fake all the time. Took her years to finally just relax and be herself on stage in certain moments. But every once I could see it, and we'd go to a show and we should do something. I was like, man, that still sticks with her, because somebody's just being mean.
Yeah, because my laugh is very loud and very unique and
Distinctive.
It's a distinctive laugh. Someone, you know, made fun of my laugh once when I was quite young, and it was crippling, because you're like, oh, that's just my expression of joy. And you've now said that my expression of joy is horrible, and it took me ages to actually release that laugh, and now I don't care. Like,
right.
I remember I went to see Nick Mohammed doing Mr. Swallow, which I think is genuinely one of the funniest things in the world, and I was with Stuart Goldsmith, and he's also got a very distinctive, very loud laugh. And there was a woman in front of us. We were sitting near the back, and it is genuinely one of the funniest shows I've ever seen. And the two of us were honking with laughter. And this woman kept turning around and staring at us, and we were like, mate, it's a comedy.
Yeah.
I don't even... And now I have no problem with it. I'm like, you don't like my laugh, that's tough. I'm not... It's just my laugh. It's just my laugh.
Let me block my laugh with this Olivier statue. Now maybe, look, it funnels the noise, because I got an award. I'm sorry, I got an award. Excuse me, my language. Sorry, language. But that's it. I mean, badly chosen thing to three people. I'm sitting here with three people I've heard sing. Is a pleasure. It's a joy to hear them sing. It really, really is. I saw Andrew do a Meatloaf song.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
In Edinburgh. And he looked like such a nice boy minutes before. Gentle, round cheeks, smiling, a bit florid in the lips. You kind of want to kiss him and put a rhubarb custard in his mouth. Yeah. And suddenly he goes full loaf. He goes, total Meatloaf. Jim Steinman was like in his soul too. It was great. It's magnificent.
Rest in peace.
Rest in peace, I know. Both of them are trying to get out of that sepulcher now on the motorcycle.
Yeah. Cycling back, boy, am I sad that I missed seeing Mike McShane as Pseudolus in A Funny Thing Happened at the Way of the Forum. That is a phenomenal casting.
I had a great time doing it, man. I had a great time doing it. I was young. I could still do a lot of tonal. I used to be able to backflip a little when I was
Oh, man.
I can't anymore, and I do not even want to try anymore. But I was young and crazy, and it was a great time.
Yeah,
it was one of those things. I played Otto Frank, the Diary of Anne Frank, Pseudolus in Forum. It was true repertory theater. It was a great place to work. And then I had a small role of witness for the prosecution as a judge. So and I learned how to make bears. My best friend is gone now, is a wig master, and he taught me building wigs and netting wigs. And I helped him make these bear shoes wigs out of tampons.
Wow!
So he took canvas, 3 strips of canvas in the shape,
and then
did the rolls, and then just airbrushed them to look like the wool. He did them for nothing. And we had these really good-looking things on our heads, and we were like 4 of us in this little box upstage. It was the gig. So you did a big role, a medium role, and you did a walk-on of some kind. That was the deal.
Wow.
And the walk-on, we would get in trouble because there's 4 of us, and we'd like smoke a big joint before we're on, putting our old age makeup. We'd have wind-up toys in the box. So when the guy come on, ladies and gentlemen, the Jetty. At the end of the day, he's looking down his little wind-up Godzillas and stuff down our feet. I still have friends from doing those shows.
Amazing.
Yeah, friends on Broadway. They're now Broadway people.
Mike, would you like to sing a song with us?
I would just be bubble yesness. Yes. Yes, please.
Let's do it.
Let's do it.
Let's do it.
What was the name of the nice nun you were talking about earlier?
Sister Rosemary.
Sister Rosemary. Can we do a Sister Rosemary?
Yeah, why not?
There comes a time when you hope that someone will see you.
There comes a time when you hope somebody will care.
I was lucky enough to have that happen when I was a young boy.
'Cause Sister Rosemary was there.
Sister Rosemary, sister cared for me. Sister Rosemary, sister who cared for me. Sister Rosemary, sister who cared for me. Sister Rosemary, sister who cared for me.
School was so scary then, didn't know what to do. She said, lad, here's a book. Enjoy it, a book for you. You could read it to the class if you want. That's your choice. And so she gave me a chance to find my voice. Sister Rosemary, sister who cared for me. Sister Rosemary,
Sister who knew my name.
Sister after whom life was not the same.
Sister who saw my pain.
God, I love you, Sister Rosemary. Okay, that got me going a little.
Oh, man.
That's so beautiful.
Oh, Mike.
I genuinely could just pay a fee to have him in my pocket and just tell me stories. I just pick him out of my pocket and he could tell me little stories every day, because it's amazing. And actually, do you know when he was talking about Robin Williams?
Yeah.
I could hear almost Robin Williams. You could hear, oh, that's right, him and Proops.
Yeah.
And Robin Williams. You can imagine that they've got this similar kind of way of speaking.
After we recorded the session, we went to the pub with Mike, and we just got like several more hours of amazing Mike anecdotes. He has lived a life. He'll suddenly start a sentence saying, so after I left the army and moved into a commune. You're like, wait a minute.
Well, it was the 70s.
Yeah.
I feel like people can't have that exciting a life anymore.
Pippa, is this about the baby again?
Probably. I suppose you less get people going, I left the army and I joined a just all of these things that people seem to do in the sort of 70s and 80s, just because bureaucracy.
Yeah.
So it's almost impossible to do those things. So that's why it's so exciting, I think, to speak to people from a slightly older generation who can have these sentences. And probably they're surprised that we find it surprising that they have done that in their life.
I don't know. I think there's plenty of people in the 70s who didn't join a commune.
It's true, including my parents. So some people just went to work in IT.
In the 70s, people developed IT from the very beginning.
That's right. That's what they were doing, and aren't we grateful for it? Because otherwise you wouldn't be able to listen to this, your favourite podcast.
Absolutely. Speaking of which, since you have just listened to it, and I'm going to go on a limb and say you might have enjoyed at least parts of it.
Yeah, because you've got all the way to the end.
Yeah.
So maybe you'd like to give it a 5-star rating.
Yes, please. Ching, ching, ching. Ching, ching.
If that's good counting. And then maybe you'd like to share it with your friends.
And you can also send us a message on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, all the usual things, and our newish TikTok channel.
That's right. It's very new and exciting. So get on that TikTok. Follow us. You can do a duet with us. You can watch some extra content. It's really a great way to interact with the Showstopper Company.
And come and see us on tour. And of course, it's July now. We're doing our big build-up towards our annual appearance at the Edinburgh Festival, which has not been an appearance for the last 2 years. So we're back again in August. Tickets are on sale.
So you should definitely go up to the Edinburgh Festival, get a ticket, come and watch us, and then listen to the podcast again.
And in whatever order.
Whatever order you want. But we're grateful to you for listening. Thank you so much.
Thank you, especially you. Thank you.
No, honestly, we're talking about you right now.
You're one of life's good ones.
Yeah. Everything they say about you is true.
All right. Take care now.
Goodbye.